2-inch brush, and I've got these covers just because I couldn't find any Terra palettes in the shop on my way down, so I thought I'd just use the see already that's a lovely colour. I'm going to put some red with that. Choose do you know cadmium red? I might use borrow some cadmium red from the actually that's a good colour anyway. Okay. So the crimson and the red. I know I'm stalling, it sounds like it feels like I'm stalling, but what I want to do is to be able to show you the colours that I'm using. So I'm going to have this. I want to show you the colours that I'm using before they go on. And even I'd recommend for yourselves to have a test piece of paper up beside you so that you can see the colour you're in, so that you can see the colour before you put it on your painting. You know, it's a handy thing to test the colours. And all of this physically moving around is a good thing. It's really good to dissipate any sort of tension, just to be preparing. So give yourself the chance to prepare without feeling like you have to
don't do a red light.
Without giving out to yourself. Oh, thanks. Oh, you really appreciate it. I actually was quite surprised that the crimson I've got is more cadmium looking, so I think it might cover both bases really. But thanks, I've tried out. Okay, so yeah, so as I'm talking about the colours now, I'll let you see what I was talking about there. So that's the orange I've got. And the reason I put out the crimson with that is because that cadmium orange to me looks a bit bright for the pot. So I thought I'd stick some of the crimson with it. You can see how the two of those colours together wouldn't be closer to the pot colour, can't you? So I'm going to put the two. Okay, and of course with acrylic, it dries, yeah, okay. Acrylic dries quickly, so stick your brushes in the water regularly. And you can change your water regularly too. Okay. So I'm going to begin now. I talked about putting the vase over to the right. So I'm going to start by, I want to place the vase so that I've got space for the lovely bright dark flower up there. So the vase, and I also want to have room for the tabletop. So before making a start, consider all those things. And then you've worked up enough and you can commit to the mark. You know, there's a certain, once you've decided where everything is going to be, then you can make your beginning. Okay. All right. So that's something big. And I would have a rag handy as well, because you're using the rag dipped in water. You can lift away. And I might also just use the rag and should I actually probably have 2 things of water, you know. I might recommend that you do that as well, so that you've got a dirty and a clean water. What was I going to say now? The next thing I might do there. This is a bit silly, but I just really like that paper. And it's maybe a little bit early to be going into details of any kind, but I think I want to try this paper on there. I don't like it. Okay. So green. So I'm going to put the green next. And then take a smaller brush. And we're to be careful of the floor. If the acrylic hits the floor, then get it before it dries. It's not a wipe it up before it dries. Okay, so I think maybe the green next. Okay, I'm just gonna wet the top bit of the orange there. Not to lift that down. If you were here for the course the last couple of days, or just even to have a look at what people did the last couple of days, there's lovely things happen with the lovely textures and patterns that you made happen with the liquid charcoal and colour. And I love acrylic paint for that reason, for the variety you can get in the surface. It's really inspiring. Like when you put water on and wipe it away, it does something. And you want want to make chance essential. You want to make the element of chance a part of your you want to let chance, the element of chance enter in for accidents to happen. Margaret, you're looking at me like, what the hell's gone on here? Jesus. I don't know if you're thinking, oh, but we'll get there eventually. I thought what I wanted to do really the first half an hour is to encourage you to, like I was saying, Louise, to you about the wild goose. So you start off with a wild goose. You can make a wild goose tame, but you can't make a tame goose wild. So if you begin with a tentative botanical kind of illustration style thing, it's difficult then to inject expressive mark making into it. Whereas if you begin with something loose and free, it's possible then to hone in and make more considered marks later and still have this energy of the thing underneath. So for the first half an hour, I recommend that you make a surface that's inspiring to work over, and to have something that explains the vase, something that explains the tabletop, and something that generally explains the shape and colour of the not the shape, the position and the kind of colour of the flowers. And then we'll stop and I'll do something in a bit more considered fashion, explaining how to pull out individual flowers. So this is the kind of loose, free way, we're painting flowers approach. And don't feel that it's going to all be like that. We're going to rein it in within reason. But I think there's always room for using the big brush. So all the way through, you want to be varying your brush size. So what I picked up there now is the hooker's green, which looks like that, and then the ultramarine blue, which looks like that. It's a bit darker. And when I half close my eyes, there's a blue-green background thing going on there. And it's not that I'm looking at any individual leaves, I'm just finding the cohesive shape of the green that's hanging the whole thing together. So really the next dominant thing that I'm seeing is the areas of green. And so I'm just drying the brush a little bit because I felt that was a little bit wetter than I wanted it to be. I don't want the mark to be the same as what's gone before, really. And I want it to be dry enough and that it'll stay put and it'll dry quickly so that I can work over it. Okay, so eyes half closed and I'm seeing the green out that side. So this is where the fuchsia will be spilling over there. But then I'm looking like this so that I'm seeing the darks and lights and not seeing any detail. So I'm just finding the shape of the darks and the greens. Okay. And it gets a bit kind of grey-green as we go up the way there. And then it gets a bit yellowy green. So I'm going to use the cadmium yellow, which looks like that. And then I put that into the green. Cadmium yellow into the colour that's already on the palette there, in order to explain these leaves that are over on this side. Maybe even a little bit more yellow. Let's see. Yeah, and I'm judging the position of the leaves fairly, I'm noticing that they're about another vase up from the vase, and that they're standing over, they're almost the farthest point. The next flower is the furthest point over. And I'm erring on the side of making them bigger rather than smaller, so that I can eat back in with the paper towel or the wet rag afterwards. Let's just see. I'm going to do a bit more blue into that, because when I half close my eyes again, there's behind that daisy, there's another darker green colour. So I'm kind of locating the position of the flowers as well here. I'm locating the position of the flowers, even just in my own head. I'm creating a little bit of order through painting the green around. Okay, so what I want to do now is to make the shape of these leaves. And this is a wet paper towel. It's allowing me to work back in a little bit. And Bandy, I thought I might borrow your roller for the tabletop maybe, to We want to kind of get right in the surface as much as we can. Will you be able to run down and get your roller?
Sorry.
And it's not obligatory a roller, they're just so bad, isn't it? That might be quite nice for the tabletop. We'll see. Okay. Yeah. And just, you can like get stuck into your work, really engage with it. You want to feel like you're entering a relationship with this and you're responding to what you're seeing, but also very much bringing yourself to the table. So this is the reason that I suggest that you keep hydrated, shake it off regularly. You want to look after yourself. And the reason I take my shoes off too is because I feel like the mark isn't coming just from my hand, but it's kind of something that's fully, arriving from somewhere beyond. That sounds quite off the wall, isn't it? But I think it's more than just, there's something in Japanese art, isn't there, where they say, it's not just your head and your hand, but your heart as well. So we're bringing all of ourselves to the table here. And I'm reminding myself that breathing is a very important part of this. So remembering to breathe and particularly focusing on the out breath. Okay, I've got a cold sore that might end up bleeding, I'm sorry. Okay, but the thing about acrylic, if you don't normally use it as well, you'll find surprises. You'll find this excited thing happening in your belly when you do stuff like wipe away a mark and it leaves a lovely splash. There'll be things that occur as you're working that are out with your control, but that surprise you, and this will keep you kind of want to keep excited by the surface, inspired by the surface. And there is no particular outcome that has to happen. You're here, you've given yourselves permission to be here, and well done, giving yourselves permission to be here, to play, really, experiment. That's what I'm saying. Are you here to play? Is that okay to say that? Just to experiment and explore with this new way of working, possibly. And I think giving yourselves the room and the space to just do that means that then we don't have a kind of we don't have something particular in mind at the end of it. You're allowing yourself to evolve and just let whatever it is, the process be the thing that you become absorbed in. So there's no kind of fixed outcome in mind. That's what I would encourage you to. And it means that as you're working, then you're kind of present with what's happening here and responding in a free kind of a way. Gosh, I don't know if that sounds like a pressure, but anyway. That's I think everybody maybe knows that feeling of flow that you can get into, and it doesn't show up like you don't press a button and it comes. But I think as soon as you start playing with colour, there's much more of a capacity for it to take hold of you, and off you go. All right. So there's blue here now that looks to me like it might be the colour of the tabletop. It's not at all the colour of the tabletop. Not a bit like it. So what would I need to do to that, I wonder, to make it? I think I'll put some ultramarine blue into it. Those two together might be not bad, is it? That's not bad, tabletop. Maybe it's got a little bit more crimson in it. Try some crimson. That's a bit better, isn't it? So that was the crimson-y colour. Okay. And one of the things that you could do with the tabletop there, in order to make it, I want to make it so that it's horizontal. So I'm going to put some masking tape there. And I was talking about the roller. Let's see what that does. Now the table doesn't actually come all the way over, but I think I want it to. So I'm going to just leave it for the moment coming over the way. If you don't have a roller, you might consider just using a big brush like that. Of course, there's a chance, if you're like me, you might want to put some newspaper on the ground, because there's a chance some things will drip. Okay. And then I might might just take off I haven't used any collage yet, have I? Honestly, I'm going to build it as collage. So let me see, what about this down here? So I think that paper that goes over that leaf that goes over the vase there might be quite nicely explained with that touch of that. Or you could, earlier I was picking up the pattern paper. Yeah, let's just see what it would look like on the tabletop even. And this already has got glue on it, so I might as well stick some somewhere. Do you know, I'm just going to put it there because it looks to me not like that cosmos that's sticking out, which isn't even in the page actually. So I'll just let it go like that. Okay. And then I want to, that's a bit ridiculous, isn't it? I didn't want it to get so dirty under there. But I think that might read quite nicely as that flower. And there's something about breaking the edge of the paper, going beyond with your brush marks, like so you're coming in with the energy of the mark is beyond the page, before and after. And similarly, you might want to use your collage as a way of expressing, as a way of extending beyond. Now, that orange, the orange vase is coming down into the tabletop. Yeah, I kind of like that the way it is. Like, if I was to do any more to that, it might be to use maybe the chalk and with my non-dominant hand to just draw a kind of a rough line that might, there's things you can do to re-establish stuff as time goes on. Okay. Yeah, so I don't know about pattern on the tabletop really. That's kind of exciting, isn't it? Yes.
Yes. Everybody's so absorbed.
Do you know, it's really good fun. I really love this. Does it feel a bit daunting? Yeah.
Did you put glue under that paper?
Under this one.
Is that glue?
You remember earlier I was going to stick it on there, so it already had glue on it. So I was kind of wanting to just make use of it.
Yes.
So it might come off again.
Yeah.
Good. And I didn't put glue on the back because the acrylic paint was already wet there, and this is light. It's quite light paper. So no, I didn't. Yeah, it might feel a little bit daunting, this thing, but in the artist's way, Julia Cameron says, serious art is born from serious clay. And this to me is a very playful way of working, and it's an important part of my practice. If I want to be able to keenly observe and do stuff that feels serious, I need to have a certain percentage of this carry on in my life in between. And it feels like going back to nursery school. My hands are dirty. Oftentimes I'll be on the floor, not saying that you have to do that, but just it kind of is a way of getting back into the fun side of it. And that's where we engage our own unique expression. So that's something that, that only you know what colours appeal to you and what you want to do. So this isn't a prescribed way of working that you're all needing to be doing a fucking aerobics class beside your easel. You don't all have to be kind of doing it the same way as I am, But I would encourage your own, the freedom to follow your own impulses. That's it, really. And there's lots of paper. I've got spare paper in the folder. If you end up making a total mess, great. Move it to one side and put another one up there. Because sometimes the very first foray into this way of working, you might find that you actually want to just let rip. And then you can't do anything with it. So you might get another sheet of paper, or you might be able to do something really spectacular with the first one, and it might be great as well. Okay. So, just for those and say maybe another 5 minutes. Is that okay?
Sure.
Another 5 minutes. I'm going to pick up the crimson with the rag this time, and I want to establish a position for those fuchsia flowers. Okay, so they're maybe about here, fuchsia, and it's a different colour from the vase, fuchsia. And then there's the spaces between them, just to give a feeling already of the kind of character of them, you know. So I'm wiping away, and you find your way. If you don't normally use acrylic, you find that you have to quickly kind of go in when it's still wet to wipe away, because the thin layer of acrylic dries quite quickly. If it's already dried, no bother. You can just use maybe an oil pastel, say. This is a white oil pastel. If it's already dried, you can use a white oil pastel in order to find again the edge of it. Or you could use, bring it in like that. And then you could, or there's other options, you know, you could have bits of torn paper, could even be a way of outlining them or establishing them a bit more clearly. Let's stick that around there just because it seems to illustrate the edge of the fuchsia as well there. And then the other thing you could do is to use an oil pastel maybe to further explain the shape. I'm doing this fairly quickly now. I'll go into a bit more detail in the individual flowers later, but I just want you to keep the faith that this isn't all chaos, that you will be able to rein in. You know, you can begin with something really expansive and free, and just keep the faith that it's possible then to bring order in, but not too much order. You want there to be that like lovely kind of tension between freedom and considered mark making. Okay, and we also have some ink as well. You know, when I said 5 minutes, did anyone actually tell you that? No? Okay, so I just kind of have an idea of. Is this
Yes, another 3 minutes. I know.
This over there now, if you want to use that high flow, but another 2.
I know, another 3 minutes.
3 minutes, brilliant. So you know there's the high flow acrylic ink there, you could inject a bit of that. I got this ink from Lidl actually, and I find the stick's really good to draw with. So in order to make a bit more sense of, where would I do that now? I mean, you might end up outlining the leaf or something with the ink. But I think first, before going into any sort of detail with small things like that, it's good to establish first the position of everything. And so I would carry on finding the position of the flowers in the same way as I did with the fuchsia. I'm not so keen on that for the collage there. Oh look. When it dries you can paint over stuff like that. But what I was going to say is I found the position of the fuchsia by just putting on the crimson. And I would recommend that you do that with all the flowers really, just to find the general size, say, of the white daisy in relation to the general size of the yellow one. And place things as truly as you can, according to what you're seeing. And then come back in and maybe rein them in a little bit. And see if you can find contrast. So variety in the texture. Actually, that was a bad one to start with. No, it wasn't. Yeah, variety in the texture. So you've got the runny paint that you wipe away, thicker areas of acrylic, like on the vase is quite thick. So the variety in the texture and the pattern, and the thickness of the paint. Variety in the mark making. So you'll use a rag, you'll use a big brush, a small brush, all within a minute. And what else could you have variety in? Line and tone. So you have your lines with the oil pastel or the chalks, and I put my oil pastels and chalks over there for everybody to use. And the ink as well. And just leave it on the table over there. And then later on there'll be time to discuss these brushes that I'm just using this one to cover over that because that annoyed me a little bit there. Because I quite like the shape that the fuchsias cut into the shape into the space behind them, and I didn't want anything disturbing that shape. Okay, and I've got white on the brush now, so I suppose I might as well indicate the position of that daisy. So when I say put something in to describe the space it occupies. That's what I mean, something like that, that's really loose and free. And of course, while it's still wet, you could begin to make some sense of it if you wanted to with another brush. Clean damp brush. Begin to find the space between the petals. By lifting off with a clean damp brush. But really, I would say the thing to do there would be to cut in later with the dark. I'm looking for a rag. To cut in later with the dark colour between the socks are great. I'm going to slide on. Cut in later with the dark colour in between the petals. Okay, so do you see, like you can make sense of things, and if you go in too far, you've always got the oil pastel or the chalk that you can re-establish a petal again over the green. So you're constantly able to shift edges. Nothing is set in stone in this way of working. And it does mean there's a kind of a, whoa, maybe slightly like, it's so open and free it might feel desperately scary. And that's kind of all right, you know. Nobody here is expecting you to do anything that you don't feel you want to do. So just you carry on your own way and feel your way. Yeah. I think that's it. Thanks very much for